Putin just tried assassinating Zelensky, but it seems his plan is backfiring on Russia. The United States is now realizing that there can be no peace unless Russia agrees to a ceasefire. That's the one thing Putin does not want. So let's start from the beginning. You see, just a few days ago on December 1st, President Zelensky and the Ukrainian First Lady arrived in Ireland. There was something very lucky about this landing. Zelensky's plane arrived just a few minutes ahead of schedule. Well, we just learned a couple of days later that this may have prevented a very drastic situation. Take a look at this report. 4 unidentified military-type drones attempted to attack President Zelensky's aircraft at the moment of landing. They failed to carry out the operation only because the plane landed several minutes earlier than originally scheduled. As it turns out, at the moment the landing had been planned, the 4 drones violated the no-fly zone and flew along the presidential aircraft's expected approach trajectory. Fortunately, Zelensky's plane had already been on the ground for several minutes by then. Local police have now launched an investigation. It's not hard to guess who was behind this drone flying. Just recently, we had Russian drones fly into Poland. Then we had Russian fighter jets invade Estonian airspace. And of course, we have multiple Russian sabotage all across Europe, including the fires set to a warehouse in the United Kingdom. And this is not just a guess. Europe is under attack by Russia. In fact, the people who were involved in the UK warehouse fires have actually been convicted, and it has been proven that they were hired by Russian agents who were paying them to carry out these attacks. Take a look at this report.
These aren't Russians scaling a wall of a warehouse in East London. Not Russians lighting a fire and filming themselves torch a building. And as the fire burns, it's not Russians running away.
The fire targeted a warehouse inside this industrial estate in East London. It happened last year. An estimated £1 million worth of damage was done to goods including Starlink satellite equipment that were on their way to Ukraine. The men who carried out the attack were British, but it was Russia that got the blame.
These men were convicted for the arson this summer. UK police say these two, the orchestrators, were acting on Moscow's orders. They are Dylan Earle and Jake Reeves, who both pleaded guilty to offences under the National Security Act, the UK's new espionage law. In the trial at the Old Bailey, the court heard Earle was in touch with Russian agents through online messaging apps. These users, the court found, recruited him, instructed him, and promised to pay him.
Russia considers all these covert attacks a punishment for all these countries who are supporting Ukraine. This is exactly why Putin is going after so many different European countries. This includes Poland, Lithuania, Germany, the UK, Ireland, and many more. Then when Russia is caught and European countries point the finger at Russia, Russia starts playing victim. Putin gets on TV and says, hey look, all these European countries, they want to start a war with Russia, not the other way around. In fact, he just did this the same day Russian drones were attacking President Zelensky. Take a listen.
I've said that 100 times. We have no plans of fighting against Europe. But if Europe wants to fight and if they start this fight, then we are ready right now. There is no doubt about this. But the only question is, if Europe starts the war, unleashes this war, because that's not Ukraine. With Ukraine, we use some surgical means. We are trying to be really careful. Because you understand why. This is not a war in the direct sense of the word. And if Europe all of a sudden wants to start a war, and if it does start a war, then very rapidly there might be a situation where we have no one to negotiate with.
Now, I just want to remind little Vladimir that the EU GDP is roughly 8 to 10 times bigger than that of Russia, and that's not even counting the United Kingdom. So, if Putin truly wants to take on Europe, I don't think it will be a long war at all. I think it was Putin who was telling us just a few days ago that he's noticing a lot of countries repeating the mistakes that led to the downfall of the Soviet Union. Personally speaking, I think one of the countries he was talking about was Russia itself. Oil prices are already going down. The Russian economy is going into the gutters, and Russia is in a war that it cannot afford. Nonetheless, Russians are not really known for their logical thinking. Otherwise, Putin would not have started this war. In fact, everyone believed that Putin would pick the logical option and not kill the world order, not kill the peace order. Because after all, his country is the most sanctioned country because of the special military operation he started. Nonetheless, we now know that Putin doesn't really care about logic. Well, similarly, now we have the Kremlin TV talking about killing European officials. No one in their right mind would do this, but then again, we cannot count on Russians to think logically. Take a listen.
European pedrasts have completely lost their minds. That is, the old thieving witch Ursula von der Leyen is trying to steal our assets. The very idea that a person whose authority doesn't even remotely include this is making these sorts of decisions and all of Europe says okay shows that we have a new Hitler. Ursula von der Leyen is absolutely a new Hitler. Not in the sense that her mustache is peeking through, but in a sense that he hated the Jews and she hates Russians. And they are saying, we can take away all of this property. This is a traditional European hyper-Nazism in its purest form.
Такой гипернацизм. Поэтому на самом деле я считаю.
In reality, I believe that this act of attempting to take away the funds is showing us once and for all that in its structure, EU is a thieving terrorist organization.
Воровскую террористическую организацию.
Well, if Russia is mad about Europe taking over the frozen assets, they definitely are not going to be happy after they hear what Steve Witkoff is saying. Now, as you guys know, we haven't been the biggest fan of Witkoff. We have criticized him a lot. But it seems over the last 3 days, he has been in negotiations with the Ukrainian side in Miami. And now his comments are very, very positive. Let me show you. It seems he's understanding that this war cannot end because Putin does not want it to end. Take a look. This is the statement he just put out. Now, before we even get into this, I want to point out that this is a joint statement. So the Ukrainian side put out the same statement, like word for word. If we read this, we know both sides agree on this. Let's start. Over 2 days, Special Envoy for Peace Stephen Witkoff and Jared Kushner met with Ukrainian delegation, which includes a bunch of people from Ukraine. Today, the group had their 6th meeting over the past 2 weeks. Secretary Umarov, who's the head of the Ukrainian delegation, reaffirmed that Ukraine's priority is securing a settlement that protects its independence and sovereignty, ensures the safety of Ukrainians, and provides a stable foundation for a prosperous democratic future. They also discussed the results of recent meeting of the American side with the Russians and the steps that could lead to ending of this war. Well, this next part is where it's shocking. Both parties agreed that the real progress towards any agreement depends on Russia's readiness to show serious commitment to long-term peace, including steps towards de-escalation and cessation of killings. Now, this is a huge deal because personally to me, this sounds like US agreeing with Ukraine that there should be a ceasefire while the negotiations are ongoing. That's something President Trump was pushing for at the beginning of his administration's term. But then he kind of gave up that idea after talking with Russia, which makes sense. Russia does not want a ceasefire because they like killing people. But in reality, Putin has been going around the whole world, going to India, and I'm sure he's going to go to other countries and just talk about how he wants peace. It's the Europeans who don't want peace. Well, if Putin wants to show the world that he wants peace, maybe they should just stop killing. Now, whenever we bring this up, that hey, maybe there should be a ceasefire while the negotiations are going on, Russian side always brings up this strawman argument where they're saying, oh, we don't want to go back to 1991 borders, and anyone who's bringing this up is just like not serious about negotiating peace. In reality, no one is asking Russia to go back, even though rightfully in a just world, that's what would happen. But no one is asking Russia to go back to 2014 borders or 1991 borders. A ceasefire basically means you stop where you are right now. And Russia is against even that. So hopefully, anyone who is even pro-Russia, I don't know why you would be watching this video, but if you are pro-Russia, you realize which side is the one that doesn't want peace. It's the Russian side. They don't want a ceasefire for some reason. But anyways, let's continue with this statement. We kind of got off track. Parties also separately reviewed the Future Prosperity Agenda, which aims to support Ukraine's post-war reconstruction, joint US-Ukraine economic initiatives, and long-term recovery projects. American and Ukrainian parties underscored that an end to the war and credible steps towards ceasefire and de-escalation are necessary to prevent renewed aggression and to enable Ukraine's comprehensive redevelopment plan designed to make the nation stronger, more prosperous than before the war. Parties will reconvene tomorrow to continue advancing discussions. So I'm recording this on Friday night, so this means they will reconvene on Saturday, which is the day you guys are watching the videos. If there is more information tomorrow, I'll make an updated video, but today this is definitely a great statement because it's coming from Steve Witkoff, who has been a little bit pro-Russian, and now even he is realizing that it's Russia who doesn't want peace. I'm guessing this has to do with that 5-hour meeting he had with Putin, where Putin was probably just giving him a fake history lesson. One of the problems with making videos like these, where we show a lot of drone strikes, even if no human or Russian soldiers are getting hurt in the video, YouTube usually demonetizes or restricts our videos. In fact, in the last week, we had 4 of our videos get demonetized. According to YouTube, showing drone strikes or even footage from the front lines is not advertiser friendly, and that's why the videos are restricted. But this is the reality of modern warfare, and this is the war Ukrainians are fighting and trying to survive. So we believe it's important to cover this all, and that's why we launched our own platform, Basics Insider. We built it from scratch, so we don't have any restrictions. We don't have to blur our drone strike, we don't have to blur frontline footage, and we don't have to blur Russian air bases getting destroyed. On top of this, we actually don't run any ads on the site. That way, we don't have to censor ourselves just because advertisers are not happy about what we are covering. We don't fund the site through ads, we fund it through your support. So if you're someone who's interested in coverage like this and you want to watch our videos uncensored and get bonus content that we just cannot upload here on YouTube, then definitely go join us at basicsinsider.com. You can also click the link in the description or scan the QR code on your screen. By joining, you can watch all the content that we have already uploaded and all the videos we will upload in the future. On top of that, you'll be supporting our coverage and supporting our channel. So thank you so much. My name is Sam, and I'll see you guys in the next one.